Greetings and welcome to the videocast of the Maestro Musicians Academy. We are a music school that is based in the greater Boston, Massachusetts area, and we serve the following locations in Bedford, Lexington, and Walpole. Our website is maestromusicians.com, and you can find out all about us and all of our respective locations by visiting that site, or as you can look below, we also have a link to our website there. We do these videocasts every month, and we also use this as an opportunity for you, our listeners and prospective clients, to get to know a little bit more about what we do as a school. And also we recognize that we have an audience not just here in Greater Boston, but all around the world. And therefore we serve the world via the World Wide Web with online music lessons. So, regrettably, this is most likely going to be our last videocast in our series about how our school operates, because quite frankly, I think we've exhausted probably most of the topics of interest, but you can certainly find all of the previous videos on our playlist, which is called Music Education on our YouTube channel. We also do list and provide all of these videos on our website, maestromusicians.com, Maestro Musicians Lexington and maestromusiciansbedford.com. And in addition to that, if you subscribe to our newsletter, which you can do so by visiting the Request Info tab, you'll be able to see these videos in our monthly newsletter as well. So today's topic, by the way, today is November 9th, 2021, and today's topic is called, Do we use a particular method in our school? The reason for answering and asking this question to begin with is because of the fact that there are schools that do have certain methods. Many of you might have heard about the Suzuki Method or the D.M.A method. There are plenty of other options out there as well. And those schools cater to a very specific curriculum and a very specific way of teaching, which typically involves some kind of group class component and possibly a supplemental or maybe private instruction component. So in other words, what I'm saying is that there will be the group classes and then a one-on-one class, either as a supplement or you could choose between one and the other. And then in those methods, you'll also be using very specific books which are appropriate to that particular methodology. So the question is, do we do that? And the short answer is no, we don't. And I'm going to tell you about my reasons for that shortly. But before I get into that, I will tell you that we do borrow very heavily from the Suzuki Method. Many of you who have watched my videos before are very well aware of the fact that particularly string players, violinists in particular, and cellists will use these Suzuki books, even though we are not a Suzuki school. Now, the implications for that are that we might not have the same structure in terms of our business model or our model of having the private lessons in addition to the group lesson component, although it is something we've considered. COVID has put a damper on that, but hopefully in the near future we'll be able to think about lessons on those terms again. But what we have found, at least in our own particular orbit, is that there isn't too much of a demand for that right now, although things could change post-COVID, of course. So let's talk about our own unique situation at the Maestro Musicians Academy. Why do we not use a particular methodology? And I will tell you the truthful reason to this, even though it's going to sound like I'm just making it up. But it's actually a truthful reason, and the reason for it is going to involve some discussion afterwards, even though it will sound like I'm just kind of avoiding the question. And the reason we don't use a particular method is because we believe that every teacher should be free to use whatever it is that he or she feels comfortable with, in addition to the fact that every student should not be treated in the same cookie-cutter mentality. Now, that being said, this goes very much hand in hand with the fact that, when you're talking about violin lessons, which might, very well be using the Suzuki Method books, even though we don't use the Suzuki Method, and I'll differentiate what that means in a minute. those books are often what teachers are familiar with, because it was and still is many times the bread and butter of education for young children, whether it's in this generation or the past generation, for string playing. So, so what happens is with the Suzuki method itself, although we might not necessarily find it useful or desirable for a particular child to have a group class plus the individual private class, it might be extremely desirable for other kids. On the other hand, consequently, we also recognize the fact that many kids are very overscheduled in today's world, especially in our Lexington area, where we have very high cost of living and two parents who are working, and not every family, unfortunately, has the ability or the desire to bring their kids to more than one musical activity per week, which is a pity, because we would love to be able to offer more. And if you decide this is for you and you want to do it, and we get a certain critical mass, please let us know and we will offer it. Now, as far as our question going back to our original topic goes, do we use a particular method? Well, okay, going back to our philosophy, we also recognize that in some probably rare instances, maybe the Suzuki books, which have an amazing collection of songs, might not be appropriate for every student. But how do we manage, you might ask, to use Suzuki books with instructors who are not using Suzuki Method? So this is kind of a conundrum, and many of you might not even know what I'm talking about here. There is something called Suzuki certification, where you can be a certified Suzuki teacher. And I would probably be willing to bet that the same applies in other methodologies as well. And although we are not necessarily looking for certified teachers, but we do use the books, the reason for that is because Suzuki methodology has a very particular way of holding the bow when one is learning, maybe very specific ways of teaching how to hold the violin, how to stand, and all of these things, of course, do vary from teacher to teacher, and I'm very well aware of the fact that the classic traditional method of Suzuki education has evolved and changed as well. And one could maybe make the argument that within Suzuki methodology there are different teachers now who are doing different things based compared to what they might have been taught or what their colleagues are doing. So in some ways we're almost talking about a moot point here. But since we are talking about our school, I'm going to continue to talk about it, how we have this fusion mentality. So if someone was using the Suzuki books, which are really no more than just a collection of pieces by Shinichi Suzuki, a great master violin pedagogue from Japan who died in the 90s, and I think he lived into his late 90s. In addition to the fact that the books also have an amazing collection of folk songs, usually Germanic inspired, and also other songs which introduce you to the concept of Baroque music, particularly minuets. What happens is that our teachers who have been through conservatories and universities have their own approaches to teaching these methodologies, and although they might or might not have grown up using Suzuki repertoire and Suzuki methodology, they themselves have their own strong opinions about what works best for every unique individual student. So what I'm trying to get at after now my 8 minutes and 47 seconds of talking about why we are not a Suzuki school particularly is I want to get at what kind of school we are. And this is where things get really interesting. The ability to not focus on a particular method gives us the unique ability to focus on what it is that we can do for your unique situation. So what do I mean by that? Well, some kids will come to us with a background where they will say, I'm looking to really learn the music seriously. I want to become a serious musician. Whereas other kids, their parents will come to us and say, I have no idea what I'm doing. We're just starting out and we want to just kind of try out music a little bit. And we're also looking for a teacher who is very sensitive, or we're looking for a teacher who is much more able to help my child who has issues focusing. Whatever your situation, whatever it is, we believe that we can help you based on the personality match between the teacher and the student, and of course the parent. That actually comes before anything else method-wise. And I will say that if you get the method right or if you get the method wrong, it's actually completely inconsequential if you don't have the personality match right to begin with, and also if you don't have the match in terms of just the general education of the teachers in terms of their ability to speak with children on a level that they can understand. So those are our priorities. Our priorities are first and foremost, make sure there's a good working relationship with the kids, and also make sure that our teachers can live up to that goal, which means having their personalities be sweet, pleasant, firm if necessary, depending on what we're looking for. And how do we do this? Well, we try to find out as much about your family as possible when it comes to your learning goals and your child's learning goals before the first lesson. We have a questionnaire that you can fill out before you begin lessons, and we love to share that with our teachers, so that way when we do send that first introductory email between you and the teacher, we're able to create that first connection so we can start out with a good foot forward. So that's my long answer for, do we use a particular method? The answer is no, but we do use aspects from many methods, and we certainly can meet you wherever you wish to be met with your goals and take you forward from there. So this has been our final video on the Maestro Musicians videocast regarding how our school works and what we do in terms of teaching our students. We will look for some other way to move forward from here in terms of varying the topics, maybe some kind of music appreciation series. We're going to have to figure it all out very soon. But it has been my sincere pleasure being able to speak to you, our listeners. And if you enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up. Maybe leave a comment in the section below. And visit us at maestromusicians.com. Can't wait to hear from you. And thank you so much for listening today.